Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Well, in today's episode, we are going to be finally dialing in all of the body gaps on our 68 Charger. We're only about a month or so out from paint. So I'm going to show you a couple tips and tricks today with some real simple tools to get your body gaps looking absolutely perfect. So let's get to work. All right, so we're out here once again working on the 68 Charger, and I've been out here just about every single day for the last several weeks trying to get this car closer and closer to paint. I've got about a month and a half or so left of time to get this thing sprayed before the snow flies here in Utah, and yeah, this car is actually really close. So those of you guys that have not been watching, this car has essentially been an entire rebody. The only thing original on the exterior of the car is the roof and the A-pillars. Everything else has been completely redone. It's got the hood and a tail panel from a different car. It's got AMD fenders, door skins, Dutchman panel, quarter panel, all that stuff. Everything has been completely redone. And frankly, when you change out that much metal on a car, you're always going to have a little bit of fine tuning and tweaking to do at the end. Now, I'm really anal about this stuff, guys. When you take a step back and you look at a $100,000 restoration, and you see the body gaps all wonky on the thing, you see the doors crooked or the hood's off, it really stands out. And for me, it drives me nuts. So we're going to avoid that. Now, I use this tool from my buddy Bryce over at Big Kid Blocks. It's a 3/16 gapping tool. And this thing has really helped me out with getting the body line straight on my builds. Now, you can use this when you initially align your panels. And you guys can see here the fitment on the top of my door. It's actually a little bit too tight right here in the middle. I can't get the tool through there. But when I get it in here, I can't even wiggle it to where it makes a sound, which is exactly what you want. So we'll have to come back through, we'll trim that, and we should be able to get this through no problem. Now, where we start to have issues here, and believe me, guys, I've spent the better part of 12 to 15 hours, I would say, aligning the panels on the car. Now, when it came to doing the metal work on this thing, I had every panel on it. We had basically the entire thing screwed together before we welded anything permanent. But again, you're changing out so much metal. Some of it's original, some of it's not. And we're going to have to do some tweaking now. But we've got our doors really nicely aligned. They open, they close, fantastic. We then aligned the front fenders as well as the hood. But we're still having some clearance issues here. I'm going to show you guys how to fix all this stuff in this episode. But back to this gap here, you guys can see, you can hear that little clicking there. Now what I like to do first is I like to establish kind of my foundational edges. Of course, your quarter panel is not going anywhere. That's going to stay like it is. You're going to do most of your trimming, if not all of your trimming, on the actual edges of the door. And now when you do that, you're of course going to end up splitting the skin. This is really just a skin that's wrapped around the edge of the door shell. And so when you do that, we're going to have to go around here. And actually, in this case, we're going to end up adding material. So we can grind this back. We'll start stacking welds on top of each other right on the edge of the panel. Never weld to the face of the panel. Never grind the face of the panel. These are very thin pieces of material, 18 gauge, 19 gauge, somewhere around there if you're lucky. So you always want to stick right on this edge, but here we're going to be adding material on that edge, and as you can see here, this is a little bit too tight, and so I can't get that tool in there, and really the fender, the hood, all this stuff is just about as close as it's going to get. So we're really at a stage now where we need to start trimming. So what I like to do, we'll start from the back of the door here. We will work our way forward. And again, when you look at all of the gaps on your entire car, you've got them all over the place. We've also got a deck lid that I have not yet fitted to the car. Got it from my buddy Chad a couple weeks back. So most likely when you're changing out trunk rails and you're changing out quarter panels and the Dutchman panel, all that stuff, you're going to end up having to trim the trunk lid quite a bit on that. So we'll get to that when we get to it. But for now, we're going to focus on this door and progressively work our way around the entire car. So let me grab a few tools and I'll walk you guys through how easy this really is. Alrighty guys, so we're like 3/4 of the way down the front of the door, and I wanted to share something with you. So you can see here, I mean, it only took me maybe 20 minutes to get all the way down to right there. And you can see how tight it is towards the bottom here. And yeah, another issue that I've got going on here is that from this body line to this body line, and you may have seen it with that camera angle, but the edge of the door actually sits out farther than the edge of the quarter panel, which is definitely an issue, and it will drive me insane. So what I'm going to end up doing is that I'll find, like, most of this panel fits like really good to the door. It's right at that body line to here, that when I installed the quarter panel, I pushed it too far in here, and it does not match the complete contour of the door. So we'll go ahead and we'll cut that from body line to body line. We'll actually pry that out. We'll just use a spoon on that, pull that out, match it to the door, weld it back up, and we should be good to go. But I wanted to show you guys here the split seam that I'm referring to down on the bottom side. Hopefully you guys can see that. But right here, you know, where that door skin is rolled over the door shell, you're going to split that open as you go down here. There's some areas that if you just trim a little bit, you won't split it wide open. In those areas, you're good to go. But anywhere that you guys can see the obvious delamination of the door skin, all you do is you throw those clamps right on there, throw little welds, again, right on the edge of the panel. You don't ever want to weld to the face. It's right on the edge. And you just stack those welds up. Do a quick little grind down so that way I can actually shut the door. And then all I'm using here is my Big Kids Block tools and rolling it down the edge until I can actually fit it in. Now you just want to take a little bit at a time. Take your sweet time here, and because you don't want to have to go back and have to stack welds back up on it. But again, 20 minutes or so. Was able to do probably, what, 2.5 feet worth so far. A lot of this is actually really good and only took a little bit of grinding towards the top, but the rest of this here, especially down towards the bottom, requires quite a bit of grinding. So let's keep on going. We got to start clamping this here now and weld it up, keep grinding, and we'll work our way around the rest of the panel. Alrighty, so we got the back side of the driver's door all finished up, and overall it turned out really nice. So again, using our Big Kid blocks, 3/16 gap tool, you guys can see how nice of a fitment that is. And it's the same all the way down, around, and across the bottom of the door. Now another thing that I did too is that I went ahead, I split the inside of this quarter panel right here, just inside of the door jamb. I ended up using my spoon tool, pulled that out a little bit, welded that back shut again, and now we've got really good fitment all the way down from the top of the quarters all the way down to the bottom of the door. So really at this stage, what we can do now, clean this all up, epoxy it, and then we're going to end up filling this whole thing in with body filler, and then we can start blocking it out across the panels and essentially panel matching the car to each other, so that way we have really seamless panel to panel transition. Now I also went ahead, I did the front of the door here using the exact same method, clean this all up so we've got really good fitment up in here, and then also I'm really happy with how, it's a little tight, but how the top of this door and front fender all worked out here. So did notice I have a little bit of a dent right here that will have to pop out here soon, but yeah, it worked out really nice. Now another thing too is that the panel transition between the door and the rockers, that curvature right there follows the rockers down. And so what I ended up having to do to match that to the door is actually splitting the edge of the rocker, hammering that over and welding it shut. But you guys can see, I mean, we've got a really good line all the way from the top to the bottom of the door. Again, a lot of this stuff is things that nobody would ever notice, but I definitely pay attention to it. And again, it's going to set it apart from other cars. Alrighty guys, so I've got some good news and unfortunately I have a little bit of bad news. The good news is that the transition here between the front fender and the cowl panel turned out really, really nice. Used our gapping tool, got really nice gaps there. The bad news is that as I was sitting here getting out all my tools and grinding wheels and everything else, I did eventually pull my head out of my ass and realize that I can probably shim these fenders out. And that's exactly what I did. And guess what? We got absolutely money gaps. Now, it only took a couple shims here to push it out just a little bit, but man, that's all that it took. And again, used that tool and made sure that we had really good symmetry on both sides. And man, does it look good. Down here in this corner, this is definitely the tightest spot. I just loosened up the bolt here on top of the fender, ended up prying that out with a screwdriver, and I ended up putting a shim back here in this corner to pull that out. And in doing so, did not really mess up my gap here whatsoever. Still got really, really good transitions here from our fender to our door. And yeah, overall looks really good. This corner of the hood is a little bit thin, so it did delaminate in the corner here, but shot some welds up in here, ground that back, and I ran over the entire edge with a 40 grit on a DA just to make it a nice soft edge, because as you're grinding this, especially vertically like that, just right in the channel, you're going to create a very sharp 90-degree edge, and I don't want that. I want it to be a nice rolled edge there. On the front side here, here's where I put my shim. It's right here on this corner, and in doing so, push the front of the fender out, which is where it was tight here in the front, and yeah, looks really, really good. I tell you what, my headlight support panel is super, super tight. And I don't know, I mean, I don't really have to elongate the holes, I guess, but if it were to be like a millimeter wider, I'd absolutely have to elongate those holes, because it's definitely kind of stretched open there in the front. But this side, the gap here is just a little bit wider. I've tried to bring this door in a little bit, but it does not want to close very well if I do that, and then it also throws off my lines there from my quarter panels to my door and then also to the front fender here. So did have to push this out just a little bit, but I tell you what, from the factory these cars were pretty damn sloppy. It's not out of the ordinary to see like 9/16 gaps or 5/8 gaps in some places, and yeah, that definitely comes pretty close to that. But again, guys, all we got to do, clean this edge off, get some bare metal, shoot some weld here right on the corner of that, and grind that back. So we really don't have to add that much material there to close that up. And then really here in this door gap, I'm going to have to trim this just a little bit. We're going to split that door skin once again, weld that up, grind it, and make sure we have good even gaps on this side. So on this side of the car, it's a little bit tough to show you guys, kind of bad lighting, but it's really the exact same thing that I've already showed you, just in reverse. So I'm going to go ahead, jam this out real quick, and yeah, we'll check it out when I'm finished, and then finally move on to this deck lid and finish up these gaps. I'm ready to be done with the metal work on this car. Cannot wait to get this thing in epoxy one more time, and then also throw it in poly here in the next couple days. So enough talking, I'm gonna get to work. All right guys, so fast forward once again, was able to get the passenger side all wrapped up here, and it turned out really nice. Now, like I mentioned, I did have to add some filler rod here to the top section of the door, as well as the corner here of the fender, but trimmed all that back, and we have absolutely beautiful fitment all the way down that. Here on the door, again, really nice, pretty tight fitment actually. I think, oh, there's a little piece of welding slag in that gap right there. We'll go ahead and clean that up here after this, but the rest of the door, everything fits really good. Here on the back side of the door, now, just like on the other side, I did have to split on the inside of the quarter panel here, use that spoon, pry that out, re-weld it back up just so that way we had good transitions between the door and the quarter panel. Now, I always say learn from my mistakes so you guys don't have to make yours. Make sure you fit your doors when you fit your quarter panels, so that way you don't have this issue. Because if I would have had my doors on here and on the striker and everything where it's supposed to go, you can actually then, when you're installing your quarter panels, pry those out, screw them into place, and make sure that you have your transitions done then. Or if you guys want to be like me and wait till the very end when you're trying to finish up bodywork, now I have to cut it, pry it out, get a good transition, and weld it back up. But again, very, very tight fitment. Let's try that again. I'll trim that just a little bit more so that way we can get that tool through there. But you can see going on the door here, super tight on both sides. You're not going to get any wiggle whatsoever with the tool in there. It is pinched that tight, and it's that consistent all the way down, all the way around, and now everything from the doors forward is done on the car. So time to finally move on to this deck lid. Now, with a little bit of help, I did already go ahead and install the deck lid. So I made sure to get my gap here on the front of it nice and even, and it shuts, surprisingly. I don't think I told you guys, but when I had the red deck lid, the old one that was on here, it was way too wide, and that's why I figured that I'd have to do some significant trimming on this thing. But I tell you what, and I don't know if my buddy Chad did a little bit of trimming before I got it for the car that it was going on to, but it fits really good right off the bat. Nice tight fitment there. Maybe a little bit too tight right there in that corner. Can't get the tool in. You can see it drops back in there. Yeah, maybe I'll trim this corner right here. You guys can see the corner of that quarter panel right there sticking out just a little bit too far. But really, this side is fitting dang near perfect right out of the damn gate, which is awesome. Got good fitment here across the top. But yeah, so we can trim that corner back just a little bit, can trim this corner right here just a little bit, and we should be all set. Now, you will notice this side has the quarter extension on, and this side does not. I have no idea where the other side went, so I've been looking for it for about the last half hour or so. If you guys have an extra quarter extension or a pair that's in good shape with no broken studs, let me know. The one on this side does unfortunately have one broken stud, so I'm going to have to fix that regardless, but would love to have a nice set of two. So drop me a comment below if you guys have any. But looking at this side, now up here, got a little bit too much. It's actually a little better here in the corner. and then it gets a little bit too tight pretty much all the way down. And then with the extension, it's actually pretty good. So unfortunately this side, and there's really not a way to really adjust it here, especially with the front lining up as perfectly as it is. So we're going to leave it exactly where it's at. We've also got really good fitment here with our quarter extension on this side. Should definitely be the same on that side. And yeah, so at this stage, we can definitely start trimming. So again, this corner, trim that back, this corner, and then pretty much that entire side. And then the process of gapping the car is finally complete. So. Already, you guys, after what felt like an eternity, in reality is probably about the better part of 2 weeks to get all this work done. But the gaps are finally set on our 68 Charger, and my God, does it look good. You know, for a car that does not get to see much daylight, it needs to start seeing a whole lot more, because this thing looks absolutely spectacular. Now, I know in the comments, a couple of you guys are probably going to say, oh, it doesn't make that big of a difference, and you know, why would you spend that much time doing it? I mean, guys, the gaps are absolutely money now on this thing, and it really projects us forward now where we can do polyester and then block it out and get it ready to finally paint. And I could not be more excited. But everything turned out really nice. You guys saw there, through all the gaps or anywhere where I did all the welding, the cutting, all that stuff, got it in epoxy, and yeah, blends really, really nice, and it sure looks fantastic. Now, you guys probably did see I had to open up a part of the trunk there. You know, I'll just go ahead and admit it now. I was putting way too much heat in this deck lid. It was also seam sealed as well before I got it, And so with that, I ground back, you know, some of the metal, but as I was welding on it, it ended up catching on fire on the seam sealer and put way too much heat in there and created an oil can from hell on the top of the deck lid. In a panic, was able to just grind a few spots, use my stud welder to heat this up, and was able to actually use a shrinking hammer, quench it real quick with some water, and it tightened right back up here. Did a quick round of body work on it, blocked it out, and it turned out really nice. Now, I'm not a huge believer in just stacking material on top of material for whatever reason. So, you know, the whole thing is in epoxy now. This side already has guide coat, that's why it's a little bit darker there, but everything blended in really nice. Used the DA sander, went well into the space that was not affected here, and we should not have any adhesion issues whatsoever. I'm still bummed about this quarter panel extension here, so if you guys have one, please let me know, because really, from the bodywork side, guys, that's about all that's left, is getting that to fit, and then, man, everything else, right? Well, at this stage, I'd be wheeling the car back in and getting back to work on it, but unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, we have some commitments coming up with the Ratty Satty. We've got car shows as soon as next weekend, I believe, and then we've also got duct tape drags in Tucson. So if you guys remember last year, we had some issues, okay? We just got in the car, been sitting for about 20 years. We got it running, driving, and racing in like 3 weeks, and we broke everything. And so since then, gone through, and it's pretty much a completely different car. Full QA1 suspension. It's got the tunnel ram sticking out of the hood there. It's an absolute animal, but we got some issues. And unfortunately, those issues are going to cause the engine and transmission to come back out of the car again. And we're going to completely tear it down, go through everything, and fix a few things that I'll update you guys on in the next video. But I figured, hey, if we're going to have it torn down that much, we might as well throw a hog gas cam in it. Might as well do some good upgrades to it. And I'm really excited to announce that not only Pipes, but also Nitrous Express has sponsored the channel, and we're going to make this thing go much faster. And I can't wait to show you guys. So stick around. If you haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button, guys. I'm literally lifting this car up and starting on it right now. We're going to have the engine out, torn down today, and figure out what the issues are. So with that, guys, thank you all so much again for watching, and take care. I'll see you all again real soon.